wrestling coach, Trevor in Manchester. How are you today, Trevor?
So far, so good. How are you, Jay?
Good, good. We were just talking off camera. So you're the coach for Algoma OUA Wrestling. You're also the president of Algoma Wrestling Club, and you're also the president of the Youth Sport Coach Association for Wrestling, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And do you teach also in your spare time?
Yeah, when I have some. Yeah, I'm a math teacher and guidance counselor at Core Collegiate.
So it's you got a full plate.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I have kids and a wife too. That yeah, sometimes I get to spend time with them.
And I should ask her, but what comes first?
We do have priorities, obviously, kids, but they're pretty busy. They're both involved in ring ed, music. They're at music tonight, doing at the conservatory. So between vocals, piano, ring ed, soccer in the summer, gymnastics, yeah, we keep busy. And then I have wrestling practices every single day too, usually a couple. So yeah, it's a busy life, but it's enjoyable.
Understandable. Now, first things first, let's talk a little bit your wrestling background. Where did that come from, and how did you get into coaching?
Yeah, so I started in grade 8, which was kind of rare back in the day. My brothers both wrestled for Core Collegiate, and at the time, things were a little bit more easygoing. The wrestling coach at the time, Frank Posabon, he was the head coach at Core Collegiate. He told my older brother, hey, sure, bring your brother out to practice and let's see how things go. So I started, going to the odd core practice when I was in grade 8, and it was great. Loved the sport. Just kind of went into it. Yeah.
And something again. Now you've been a coach at Core for years, and now, like say, you're also teaching there, but at the same time coaching Algoma. Talk a little bit about the difference coaching high school student athletes to OUA student athletes.
Oh, there's a huge difference. So I had actually started coaching OUA athletes before high school. When I was a university, I was a varsity athlete at Lakehead University. I wrestled up there for 5 years. In my last few years, I started taking over our U19 club wrestlers and coaching them and going to nationals with them. And so it was our first and second year university students that I was coaching. I got a lot of experience there. Moved home, started coaching at Core Collegiate when I got a job there. I was young, 23 years old. Started coaching at Core when I became a math teacher there, and it was a different environment. I'll say that. 23 years old, coaching 19-year-olds and 18-year-olds, and we had a huge team at the time. I had a lot more energy to go out and recruit, visiting grade 9 classes and running gym classes and everything else. So numbers were extremely large at the time, and introducing people to the sport of wrestling at the age of 13 and 14, as opposed to, the university level now, where I have wrestlers that have been wrestling for 15, 20 years. And it's a completely different environment. I love all aspects of coaching, but it's enjoyable to not just focus on the basics sometimes too, to be able to take it to the next level and excel. So it's been great so far.
And the other show that we do here, like I said, Raquel and Kelly Sports Talk, they had a couple of coaches and wrestlers on talking about, they were learning about sports and something like that. And one of the big things that came up is, and I'll use maybe in Southern Ontario, but more in the States, they have, they start really young like we do in hockey and other sports. Why is that different in Ontario compared to other places?
So Ontario, we're starting to get there in Ontario. We're looking at starting our youth club here in Sault Ste Marie in the future too. Some of the MMA gyms locally, I know Steel City MMA has run it in the past in conjunction with the wrestling club. They do run youth wrestling here and there as well. It's just not as regimented as it is in Southern Ontario and all through the U.S. I mean, we have a wrestler on our team from South Carolina, that he started wrestling when he was 4. He's been wrestling ever since. We haven't gotten to that point yet. It's just, different countries, different things. In Canada, I think it's just a normal thing for everyone to start. I started hockey at 4, and I think that's a normal thing here. U.S. it's all sports at that age. It's not just one sport. They just do a much better job promoting all sports. And yeah, keeping with it. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of burnout for a lot of the athletes there. But yeah, Southern Ontario is starting to get to that point. A lot of clubs are starting to gear it towards the youth, just like a martial art would be as well. There was a boom for a while there, especially with MMA crossover and things like that. We do get some MMA fighters that want to train with us as well and things like that. So yeah, there's starting to get a little bit more publicity there as well.
And like you say, you have 8 wrestlers at Algoma ranked, and in the top 8 of each of their categories, and out of the 8, 6 of them are from the States. So it shows that starting at a younger age, it's beneficial to your program, right?
Yeah, for sure. We don't want our developmental period for our athletes to be their first and second year university. It's great when that's grade 7 and grade 8. Then you come in here and you already know the basics, and we're not. I don't want to say wasting time, because we've had a lot of success with our athletes that are picking up the sport, being coachable and everything like that. But yeah, most of our athletes that do excel, they're putting in the extra time and knowing the sport in and out.
And something, the one thing I always ask, and I work a lot closely with the basketball programs and soccer programs at Algoma. How do you help these players or athletes when it comes to academics and their sport? Like you say, they're leaving home. Like you say, out of your top 8, I'm looking at my list here. You have 3, 4. You have 4 of them that are first year university students. How do you help them bring both together?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with our coaching staff as well. Almost every one of my members of my coaching staff is a varsity athlete in the university level. They are all wrestlers. We have people that, we have a doctor on staff. We have, computer engineer. We have multiple teachers, social work degree. So we have just a broad whole spectrum of education, and putting an emphasis on education first. As much as we are here speaking with you, I'm the wrestling coach. It's a wrestling program. To have our athletes not do well academically, it means that they're not going to stay here. So it's really not a good investment for us to have poor students, as bad as it sounds. We actually look for strong students. When I recruit U.S. athletes, I use multiple different sites over there and different services. We actually look for 3.2 GPA and higher. It's very rare for us to take a U.S. athlete with a lower than 3.2 GPA. Same thing for most of our Canadian athletes. We're not getting athletes that are struggling in school. We try to help them, a guidance counselor in high school as well. For some people, it's just not the smartest move to go to university just to play sport, especially, let's be honest, Canadian university, where you're not going to be making a career out of it. So,
and again, we're talking about Americans and Canadians, and you have Canadians on your program from across the country, but you have LA, California, Simpsonville, South Carolina, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, Albuquerque, New Mexico. How do you find these athletes in all 4 points of North America?
Yeah, so we had a lot of success before COVID. I'll start with that. We recruited a bunch of Americans, just because athletics is it's such a bigger deal in the U.S. than it is in Canada across the board. Like I said, they treat every sport like we treat hockey. Maybe not to that extent, but to some extent. There are more wrestlers in Michigan than there are in Canada. So when I'm looking at recruiting, sometimes it's very difficult to convince someone in Southern Ontario, where they have 12 universities within a 2-hour drive, to move to Sault Ste Marie, to this tiny little community they've never heard of. They think an 8-hour drive is extreme. They've never heard of people taking this huge drive. So the travel competitions or the travel up here to come and check us out, it's difficult. Where the U.S., it's not a big deal for them. They're used to traveling across the country for a lot of the wrestlers at all different levels. So as opposed to, we have U Sport for wrestling. They have Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, JUCO. There's so many different divisions that they have. So there's so many different options for wrestlers. And because we can offer financially, maybe not Division 1 level, but we can compete with the others. We can take these athletes that, might not be national champions first year, but we can develop them into national champions. So.
And I've talked to Coach Anderchuk and Coach Scarpino with soccer, and Katie Hamilton, Ryan Vitre with basketball. How much has Taylor Boulanger helped the program when it comes to the players' fitness?
Oh, Boulanger is amazing. Yeah, he's great. I knew him in advance to this, so I was excited to get him online and on board. He's great. I can't speak highly enough about him. Yeah, he runs. He's posting workouts throughout the week. They're doing Monday lifts, Friday lifts. They're doing recovery days on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Usually they do a group session with him on Wednesdays. He's been great. He tailors it a lot, just based around what their schedules are like. So we know during exam period we're going to taper a little bit, and Christmas time we're going to do different things and gear workouts towards them working out on their own at home. Right now we have OUA, so we've kind of spoken about things to, changing things up right now. Big thing for us will be off-season training, and I try to explain that to the athletes. Like we're not training for this year; we're training for next year, the year after, and the year after as well. It's not just a quick investment. We're looking for the long term for them. So.
And we'll touch base here and then talk more about it later in the show. But is there a lot more pressure on the athletes this year hosting the OUA Championships this coming Saturday here in Sault Ste. Marie at Algoma?
You know what? I don't know if there actually is. I think a lot of them are. They enjoy it. It's nice to be home. Like we have a team dinner planned Friday in our wrestling room, which is rare. Like, we're going to eat right beside our wrestling mats and enjoy they get to sleep in their own bed instead of a hotel for once. We're not taking an 8-hour bus drive and then, sitting 8 hours in a bed and then expected to compete at an elite level. It's going to be wonderful. We're really looking forward to it. I think the athletes are excited. We have multiple parents. We have parents coming up from Wisconsin. We have parents coming up from Ottawa, coming in from Timmins. We have family members from all over coming. So it's going to be great. And then online, we have California is going to be watching, Texas is going to be watching, South Carolina is going to be watching. So it'll be great. Usually that gets picked up by a lot of their local wrestling teams as well. McMaster Invitational, when we were there, the South Carolina Amateur Wrestling Association actually shared the links, and they had a bunch of wrestlers and coaches from South Carolina cheering on the Algoma team. So it's great. We're really looking forward to that. It lets us have a different environment staying here at home. We have our own gym, we have our own change rooms, so we're used to this environment. I'm really looking forward to it.
And it's something about Algoma. For people who don't know where Algoma is, it's Sault Ste. Marie. It's 8 hours north of Toronto and 5.5 hours north of Detroit. And how are we ranked 8th in the country when it comes in the men's division? It's a surprise to a lot of people being this small of a school and being ranked that high.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of success with our wrestlers this year. We're a tiny, tiny team compared to most teams. We know that most of our depth chart is usually just one guy per weight class, and they're training with a guy either above or below. Whereas a lot of teams, they have 3 or 4 different wrestlers per weight class. If there's an injury, they're filling. If we get an injury, we're blanking that weight class. We just had a lot of success. Being where we are, I'm from Sault Ste. Marie. I lived in Thunder Bay for years. Being in Northern Ontario, it's different. It adds a lot of community to the team. We have a sense of team that other teams don't. They leave Saturday morning, they compete Saturday, they drive home Saturday. They're not getting the overnight experience. We spend 8 hours on a bus together. They're hanging out, they're chatting. We go for a team dinner that night. They're in a hotel room. We're competing together. We're back out for team dinner. We're in a hotel room. We're traveling together again on a Sunday. It's just we also try to make sure that we're emphasizing the importance of team here. It was something that was really instilled to me when I competed for Lakehead University. Francis Clayton was our coach at the time, and it was big. With location being Thunder Bay, we didn't go home at all. There was no time off at reading weeks or Thanksgiving. I came home 5 days at Christmas really, and we were back before New Year's. We spent Thanksgiving together with the team. We spent Easter together with the team. We spent all these holidays that most students get to go home and spend with their families. We spend together. So you kind of, again, you develop that sense of community and sense of family with the team. And something we kind of did here. We used to celebrate American Thanksgiving with our U.S. athletes because we know they're heading home in mid-November, in the middle of our season, to spend that Thanksgiving time with their family. So it's something we really spend a lot of time focusing on. We deal a lot of outdoor. Sault Ste. Marie, I can tell the athletes, it's probably one of the most beautiful places in the world, to be honest with you. So take advantage of that. We went up to Robertson Cliffs a few times, things like that. Go look at Lake Superior, Lake Huron, take some a hike on the Hub Trail. So we got to take advantage of what we have here.
And your first year athletes are used to this winter from most of the places that you come from, because we're used to 6 feet of snow this time of year, where we're seeing grass in mid-February, right?
Yeah, it's been perfect actually, because I didn't have to lie about our winter. It's not bad at all. I heard we're getting record highs this week, and we're gonna have green grass again. So we have a gentleman from Los Angeles, and I told him, hey, we're not that different than you right now. So yeah. So,
and we're going to talk about a few of the athletes, but one athlete I would like to talk about is Calgary, Alberta native Roman Nero. Played basketball for like 15 years. And for some reason, he put away the high tops, and now he's still wearing high tops, but a little different. Talk about that transition for Roman from basketball coming to wrestling.
You know what? He still has another year. He's coming back next year, so he tells me. It was. I'm not gonna say it was a smooth transition because he's a first year wrestler wrestling against 90 kilo, 100 kilos, so 200, 220 pound men that have been wrestling for 15 years. But he's doing well. Like he picks it up. He's a natural athlete, so he does do well. He's coachable. He listens. We have high aspirations for him. He's realistic. I'm realistic. We're not going to see them this year, but we'll see him at OUAs. But we don't expect him to win OUAs for us. It's something that we're kind of gearing towards for next year. And he seems to have fun. I have no idea if his aspirations. We do get a lot of people transferring later in life when they say they want to fight MMA or something like that, maybe jiu-jitsu. So a lot of people do think that maybe that's the ultimate goal for him. And he seems to enjoy it. Again, he comes out and has fun.
And the biggest thing is he's used to the discipline of athletic and student athlete, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's a good student. He's a good athlete, and we want to make sure that we keep promoting that. Yeah.
And the next one we're going to talk about a little bit is Kyle Price. Yeah. As of last week, he was ranked first overall in the 90 kilogram category. Talk a little bit about Kyle.
Kyle's a great kid. I shouldn't even say kid. He's 25
now. Right?
Yeah, so he's looking to finish up. Kyle will be the first to admit during COVID, he did not like online schooling at all. He actually got a job. He was a miner in Kirkland Lake. So he was working, running heavy machinery under the ground. So he actually came back to us last year in January. He was a little out of shape. He started weighing about 260 pounds. He was out of shape. He started slowly losing weight and getting back into shape. At one point, he was ranked number 2 at the 100 kilo category. He decided, he wanted to keep it going, dropped to the 90 kilo category, won a bunch of competitions. Right now he's ranked number 1 in youth sports for 90 kilos. Very, very high expectations for him this weekend. For both of us, we have a game plan set. We won't talk too much about that.
Understandable.
We know who he's going to be going against. We know the opponents that are going to give him trouble and how to deal with them. So.
And in the 72 category, Anthony Neighbor, Fond du Lac, Michigan, ranked 5th. Talk a little bit about Anthony.
Yeah, so Anthony's a great kid. He's actually from Wisconsin. Wisconsin, as he likes to say it. You got a little bit of an accent, but I'm sure I do too for all the people from Wisconsin listening. He's a great kid. He's first year. He'll be wrestling 72 kilos, so about 158 pounds, which is, probably about 15 pounds heavier than when he wrestled in high school. High school in the U.S., they cut a lot of weight. I'm not a big proponent of cutting that much weight. So he's had.
Wait, is that because of health? Sorry to interrupt.
Health reasons. I'm just not a big fan. I don't think it leads to good competition. I don't think it leads to long-term wrestlers. I think it leads to a lot of burnout where athletes get tired of it year after year after year. We're looking long-term. So for him to not cut weight in first year so he stays here for 4 or 5 years is great. I don't want him to be, hate the sport in a year and stop. Our ultimate goal is not just having wrestlers. We want these guys to go on and these men and women to go on and stay in the sport, whether they're becoming coaches or referees or even administrators. Like, we want them to stay in sport, not be so disgusted or so upset with how they were treated that they want nothing to do with it. So he's a great kid. He does really well on the mat. He catches a lot of people. He's right at that cusp of getting to the elite level at this point already, which is rare for a first year. So he hasn't made that jump yet to competing with the elite, but he's beating the guys that are right on the cusp. So it's great.
And 61 kilograms, Grayson Dalton. I had to look up where Simpsonville, South Carolina actually was.
I still don't know.
He's ranked 7th. Talk a little bit about Grayson.
Yeah, he's a good kid. He's a kid that he's been wrestling since he's 4. On mat experience, he's basically second to none. The only one that probably has the amount of experience that he does is Kyle, who's got a good 7 years of age or 6 years of age on him. He's very explosive. He's dynamic. He knows what he's doing. He's dealing with a couple of long-term injuries that he's had from last year. He's ranked number 1 or number 2 in South Carolina at a point when he was in high school. He's, like I said, dynamic. He's a great wrestler through and through. We're just making small adjustments. They're used to wrestling folk style, which is a different style than freestyle, what we do here in Canada. So a lot of things that they do or they're used to doing, just point-wise, it doesn't work for us. Different rules, rules make the match. So, yeah.
And then Sullivan Vandez, ranked 7th in the 57 category. Out of California, talk a little bit about Valdez.
Yeah, so he's directly from like downtown Los Angeles. He came and toured Algoma. He liked it. He wanted to be here. His parents actually flew into Southern Ontario. They met up with us for a couple competitions. They stayed down there for 2 weeks. They loved it. It was a little cold at that time, but that's okay. He's a great kid. Does really well in school. Really, really good wrestler with a ton of potential. Very quick. We're working on a few different positions with him. I can't speak highly now. This team is great. A lot of our first years are Kyle's our old man on the team, but they're doing great. It adds excitement to it. COVID was a hard time for everyone, and I think it's underestimated the effect it had on the coaches too. A lot of us, we didn't have the passion for the sport that we normally do. Just sitting there for 18 months. Wrestling was a sport listed by name that we weren't even allowed to practice.
Yeah.
So it was difficult for every wrestler in Canada at that time. Unless you're in a national training center, you weren't allowed to practice at that point. So it's great to be back and have the excitement in the room. Every one of them is they come in with a smile on their face. They're happy to be there. They usually come in early. We have a wrestling room in the tech that we rent out, and it's wonderful.
And Albuquerque, New Mexico, Rebecca Van ranked 6th in her division. Talk a little bit about Rebecca.
Yeah, she's actually newer to the sport, but I don't think you'll find a stronger girl in 53 kilos. She weighs 53 kilos and wrestles like she's 83 kilos. She is one strong girl, one strong young lady. Very fit. Flexibility is unheard of for her. Like she's just, can tie herself in a pretzel, which we usually don't recommend in wrestling. When it comes to the athletic side, there's no one in her weight class that, especially at her age, that's comparing. Because of their lack of experience, we're working technically with her a lot, and like the increase this year has been amazing. Even just this last week, just seeing her on the mats, a lot of movement-based drills that she's been working on. It's been fantastic. We have top 3 at OUA is what qualifies for U Sports. It's a guaranteed qualification where top 4 can kind of get a wild card. So our goal for every one of our athletes is top 3. Besides Kyle, of course, he's defending OUA champ. But we're trying to make sure that we're getting the smart matches in and things like that. And we have a game plan for every single individual wrestler, and want to make sure that we're following it.
Mel Morrish.
Yeah, Mel's from Timmins.
Northern Ontario girl. We say girl.
Yeah. Been here for a few years now. She's actually from the same high school that Kyle's from. I'm going to butcher it with my accent. École Secondary Catholic Thériault. I don't speak French very well. I know I'm from Sault Ste Marie. It sounds like we should, but we don't know that story about Sault Ste Marie in French.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to worry about it, no.
But she's honestly fantastic. Great girl. Hard worker. She shows up. She works a job. She goes to school. She's getting great grades. She makes the team look good with everything she does. Adapted her style the last couple competitions, and it's been seeing results all of a sudden now too. She's starting to realize that she's more of a controlling wrestler as opposed to a quick and speedy, explosive wrestler. So it's great. Yeah.
And Kara Buck.
Yeah, another example of just adapting style. She is a killer in the practice room. We went and trained with the Guelph team in October, and one of the first things that Doug Cox, the coach at Guelph, had said to me is that girl's a killer. I'm like, I know, she just doesn't realize it yet. So if we could, big thing with Kira has been the mental game of transferring what she does in practice to the competition mat, and something that we've been working on. And again, we see success lately. We're hoping it carries forward to the OUA Championships. She just won our last competition at the Western Open. She placed first there, and we're hoping to continue.
And Layla Fraser, Renfrew.
Yeah, so Lila's from Renfrew, which is like an hour from Ottawa.
Yep.
This is our second year here. She actually qualified for U Sports last year in place, so we're hoping to get a little bit higher of a placing this year. She's had a fantastic year. Hit a little ups and downs. At 83 kilos, she won 3 competitions already this year. Even 3 of the girls that are ranked higher than her, she's beat them all this year. So we're hoping that OUA's is kind of the deciding match where we prove that she's going to end up on top.
And we've talked about all the ranked, like you say, your ranked athletes in your sport. But is there any surprises that might come on Saturday from your other wrestlers that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, so we have a gentleman from Brampton. Actually, he's only in his second year ever wrestling. Decided to. He was a soccer player all growing up. Alex Rolick from Brampton. He decided to join wrestling his last year of high school, and his wrestling coach was a former teammate of mine up at Lakehead. And he told me to watch this guy. He placed fourth at ROPSA, which is Region of Peel, one of the biggest regions in Canada for athletics. Didn't quite qualify for OFSA, but he did amazing. And watch out for him. And he wanted me to take a look at him. And honestly, he's been great. He's one of the hardest workers on the mats. His development has been through the roof. Even if he doesn't qualify for U Sports this year, high hopes for him in the future. I think if he keeps developing like he has so far, we got a future medalist in our hands here.
And like I say, on Thursday this week, like I say, February 8th, is the Sault Ste. Marie High School City Union. I know you had a busy week, but are you going to have a chance to pop into Cora or into the gym at Cora to see what's going on?
Yeah, so in between classes and everything else, I'll have some time. My guidance period, I'm hoping they'll give me some leeway to head down there. I still like to be active in the high school community. I'm still the teacher mentor for the program at Cora. I do travel with the public school teams to Nassau, and I help out coaching there when they need an extra hand on the mat. The way wrestling tournaments work, especially at something like OFSA, there's 10 mats, so you could technically have 10 people from your team wrestling at the same time.
Yep.
So if you only have 2 coaches, you're lacking. So we all try to get along, St. Mary's, Superior Heights, Cora, White Pines, the coaches all get along at the high school level. We realize that as much as we're competing for city championships against each other, our ultimate goal is to help these athletes get as far as they can with the sport. So we have no problem helping each other out, especially at an event like OFSA. So it's great. When they need me to jump in and help out, I have no problem with it. And I'm looking forward to getting back to showcasing some wrestling at the high school level in front of the school.
And that's exactly what, like you say, with the Raquel and Kelly Sports Talk shows. That's one thing the wrestlers and the coaches talked about is if you're coaching a player on one mat and there's another mat going on, like you say, one of the other coaches from the school will step up and help that athlete. You don't see that in too many other sports in Sault Ste. Marie or anywhere.
Yeah, and I think part of it is the fact that we've had a lot of success in wrestling in Sault Ste. Marie because I think an individual sport, it's it's hard for us to field teams with 75,000 people when you're competing against a downtown Toronto team. Whereas if we get a couple good athletes individually, they will do well. So I think our individual sport success has probably been as well. I don't want to upset Tom Annett and say it's been as high as football, but it's been up there. We have a lot of OFSA champions for wrestling in the history of the city. We have a lot of OUA champions at the university level. Before we had Algoma, we had to travel away to go to school. So between Brock University, Western Mac, Queens, Lakehead, Sault Ste. Marie athletes have competed on all those OUA teams. So it's great. We're just used to we training together. Even by all means, most of our high school club athletes are all from the schools here in the city. They're used to training together, used to traveling together. I would like to say most of them get along, and that's kind of the ultimate goal. Is want to make sure when we do travel, even if we just meet up with them in Barrie or something like that, it's not St. Mary's versus Cora versus White Pines versus Superior Heights. It's Sault Ste. Marie versus everyone else.
Yep. Now, if you're first, we'll talk a little bit about recruiting. But first, if you're talking to any of the local kids here, what would you tell them to be working on to eventually potentially make your Algoma roster?
Yeah, so I look for two main things. There's a lot we look for. Academics, I want good students. I think it does show if you're a good student, you've obviously got some traits that transfer over to athletics, and it honestly makes life easier for every university coach when you have student athletes that are actually students as opposed to just athletes. And coachability for me. I have a lot of confidence in our coaching staff at the university. I've got a lot of assistant coaches that help out, and I'm 100% confident that we can develop athletes or wrestlers as long as they're capable. If they listen to what we're telling them, they're buying into Belanger's his workout plans. We also have Cam Wilson. He actually is one of our trainers for the wrestling team as well. He's a cross-country coach for Algoma University. He's a teacher at Cora. He works with the team as well. With some planning on off the mats. We have 7 different assistant coaches that have been on the mats this year with us. So it's great as long as they buy into the program and to what we're trying to develop. Then we 100% confident that 2 or 3 years down the road they'll see some success in sport.
And as being a small school again, being Algoma, I talked to the soccer coaches and the basketball coaches about this. What are some of the biggest challenges of being OUA coach or youth sport coach in a small community and a small school compared to some of the bigger schools?
Well, I'd say that we probably have similar problems to basketball and to soccer, but at the same time, same thing I was talking about earlier. We are technically an individual sport with team results determined from the individual results. So it's much easier for me. I'm fully aware that, for the wrestling team, we have a gentleman ranked #1 in the country. If he wins me a national championship this year, Kyle, I hope you're listening. If he wins a national championship this year, it makes the entire program look good. Our team result, if he's the only one that places, we're still probably going to place 10th or 11th, which isn't outstanding, but it's still higher than a lot of other teams just from that one gold. So we get a few results, and all of a sudden, we're realistic that we're not winning a national title this year. But we have aspirations 2 or 3 years down the road that's actually possible with proper support. And so we deal with a lot of the same issues. The recruiting issues, not just because of school size. We're 1,800 students in Northern Ontario. We got 75,000 people here. You try to tell athletes no, there's lots of. We have them all. We have internet. We have roads. They're not covered in ice year round.
We're not in igloos.
Yeah. There's a lot of misconceptions about things up here. We're directly on the border. We started using that as a selling point. I try to switch it around, use location as a positive. If you're outdoorsy, there's tons of fishing, there's hunting, there's kayaking, canoeing, and campfires. You can have all the fun you want out here. Enjoy the scenery. I know the tour train's a big thing. Come watch the leaves turn color. Doesn't work for me, but hey, it's great. Yeah, I don't like raking them up, but it is what it is.
Exactly, and we'll round that off to 10,000. I'm saying it's probably more, but 10,000 for being a border city, an American athlete coming, and $1.40 right now with tuition and everything else. That's a huge incentive to promote to the American wrestlers, also, right?
Yeah, completely. I don't want to bash their education system too much, but their tuition is just it is insane. I'm sorry. A couple of the bigger universities, when you're looking at state tuition, and kids are talking about, we had a transfer years ago from Eastern Michigan University. They were a Division I school at the time. Bryce Davis, he came up here. He wrestled for us for 4.5 years. He was actually ranked #1 in Canada as well at 72 kilos. And he told me the tuition he was paying at Eastern Michigan, and with the conversion of exchange rate, I'm like that would pay for 4 years here with living expense, and it was just insane. So we've, I've talked to a couple athletes. We possibly transferring from private schools in the U.S. and they're talking like $36,000 US for 1 year. That's not unheard of. The average is probably about 28 to 30,000 for 1 year of schooling at this point. That's before exchange rate. It just, So when we can offer them, Algoma does a great job. I don't even know if people are aware they offer domestic tuition rate to any U.S. citizen, which is fantastic. So all of a sudden it drops their tuition rate to manageable levels, which is it's not a scholarship, but they think it's a scholarship right off the bat because wow, I can actually graduate debt free as opposed to being $100,000 in debt after a 4 or 5 year degree. So.
And there's also, again, so much scholarship-wise a program can offer a student, but there's also grades and everything. There's academic bursaries. So there's a lot when as a coach talking to, and not just Americans, but prospective clients.
Yeah, and the university's been great, too, with even just on-campus jobs for not just student athletes, but just students in general. I think everyone realizes that there's a lot of jobs out there across the province and across the country. I think I don't even know what minimum wage is at this point, $16.50 or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, so minimum wage is pretty high. We're pretty open about this. I tell the athletes school comes first. If they, we try to arrange classes around a practice schedule, but if it's not possible, yes, no, you miss practice before you miss class. And I fully understand that some of them have to work now and again to actually be able to live here, which is understandable. we do additional practices when we can. We've had morning practices a few times in the last couple of weeks with a couple of individuals. We do a 6 a.m. practice to fit in extra mat time because a couple of them are trying to make sure that they're ready for OUAs. We've done extra mat time. Our wrestling room's open from 1 p.m. till 7 p.m. We have athletes coming in and out when they're, if they have, our normal practice time is a 4:30 team practice. If they can't make that, we have someone coming in at 1 or 2 in the afternoon with a small group to get some extra time. And yeah, it's great. Most of the athletes are willing to, be the wrestling dummy for that extra time too, which is fantastic.
And going back to soccer and basketball, we see more and more international students, and we're not using the United States as an international, but more and more international students. What's wrestling like outside of North America?
Well, right now, my U.S. athletes are going to get mad when I say this, but Russia is probably the strongest country in the world for wrestling. Anybody that follows MMA realizes that Dagestan is huge for, MMA fighters with a wrestling background. Cuba is amazing. There's a bunch of Middle Eastern countries like Iran, which is fantastic. There's a lot of countries that are very strong. I mean, I don't think there's a country in the world that doesn't have wrestling. It's a very cheap sport. We had a famous Canadian wrestler, Daniel Agali, that won the 2000 Sydney Olympics gold medal. And he talked about his father in Nigeria, like tribes were settling disputes by wrestling matches between the chiefs, things like that. It still exists in a lot of the tribes in Africa and things like that. So it's worldwide. It's cheap. There's different styles, but there's usually something somewhere. So it's great to see. I do get the odd weird email from different countries with people that language wise English isn't the first, second, or third language they're speaking, and they want to come to Canada and they don't understand that I can't just give them an immigration status. I can't they don't treat wrestling coaches in Canada the same way they do in Iran. So I can't pull strings with customs. I can't give them free tuition. Yeah, but it's nice to see that a lot of countries it is a much bigger sport. I had a teammate in university. He was from Turkey. It's a national sport of Turkey is wrestling. So it was, he had a different perspective, and he would tell us stories about, the different ways that wrestlers were treated and like being gifted houses when they won a championship and things like that. And, yeah, so it was just, it was fantastic.
So what's going to happen when you knock on Jared Miller's door and say, I want to go to Russia to recruit?
I don't know if Russia's the country we want to be focusing on.
Well, how about Cuba then?
Cuba would be great. Yeah. Funny enough, funny stories. We ran into a custodian that was working at the Tech, and he asked me, and we just got talking, and I asked him, well, so what sport did you play growing up? Was it baseball or wrestling? And he said, oh, I wrestled. So I'm like, okay, great, yeah. So we talked about wrestling for a good, probably an hour, and yeah, it was fantastic. Wrestling is also one of those sports where because you can kind of notice people with the broken ears.
Yep.
You get noticed when you're, randomly you'll be on a flight and someone will ask you, oh, did you play wrestling, or did you wrestle, or you're a rugby player? It's usually one of those sports, and you get asked, and it's just there's a lot of connections worldwide. Most of us have run into someone who, from a different country that grew up wrestling as well, and you have some random conversation in an airport with them about it.
So one of the last questions, as a coach or as an athlete, what are some memorable wrestling moments for you?
Probably, we had a few OUA championships and probably OFSA champions as well back in high school days. So the year we started the program here at Algoma, I was asked to write a letter on behalf of Algoma University to the OUA, just talking about the history of wrestling in Sault Ste Marie and the history of the sport, and how we had multiple, I'm talking like 30 different athletes in the last 20 years go on and compete at different universities, and how we could actually support a program here. And it was just a kind of a coincidence that the exact same year when we were at OFSA championships, we had a Cora wrestler when I was coaching at Cora that won OFSA. She was an OFSA champion. She was a club national champion for Canada. And it was just, great timing that the year we started the program was the year she was looking for a university to go to. So it just made sense for her to stay in Sault Ste. Marie. She ended up wrestling for Algoma University, so I was the only head coach she had ever had At the time, I was the club coach, so I was her coach at Core Collegiate. I was coach for her local wrestling club, and I was her university coach. She ended up placing nationally for us at U Sports multiple times, being a medalist, medaling at OUAs. Natasha Darudian, she's actually finishing up her second year med school right now. She's a graduate from the Law and Justice program here at Algoma University, and decided that she didn't want to be a lawyer. She wanted to be a doctor, so studied up and wrote her MCATs and got accepted to medical school.
So, and talking about that, what do you think wrestlers, and not just at Algoma, but at OUA U Sport, what values and life skills can they take away from wrestling into their lives after they grow up and graduate, I guess you say?
Yeah, so I think a lot of MMA commentators like Joe Rogan and things like that will talk about it. I won't go into his other thoughts, but when he talks about the mindset of the wrestler, a lot of it is just work ethic. It's a grind, as they say in the U.S. So the sport is a grind. You're used to putting in 2 or 4 hours of on mat time, plus doing workouts, plus doing other things. And like a lot of them say, like UFC commentators, the wrestling mindset is a completely different mindset than most varsity athletes are used to. So that's why you see a lot of success at the professional level at that sport.
So, and the final question: in what ways do you promote the sport of wrestling and accomplishments as a team? Like most other sports, it's wins and losses, but when it comes to wrestling, what accomplishments, like you say, are success?
So obviously we do look at wins and losses, and we're looking at results. So for us, it's medaling at competitions is the big thing, but it's also head-to-head results for us. Because there's a lot more to it. You could have a bad match, you could be injured. Different weight classes, people don't understand the difference that a weight class can mean for someone. If you're weighing 82 kilos and you decide to cut to 72 kilos, that's a huge drop. And again, we don't promote big cuts like that. I mean, losing 22 pounds in 3 or 4 days to compete at a lower weight class. So you get that a lot in wrestling. Not as much in Canada. The U.S. was very, very unhealthy with it for a while there. Back in my high school days, there was a few collegiate wrestlers that actually passed away due to excessive weight cut and creatine. So a combination of retaining water and trying to cut water at the same time, which obviously doesn't make sense. But overall, we OUAs and U Sports for the university are the big ones. As much as we're looking throughout the year, usually you're pretty consistent with your results. You see, there's no one that's going to win U Sports that hasn't won a match yet this year. We don't have the Cinderella stories. There's usually some sort of success. It's not someone that hasn't won a match that's jumping in and winning a national title. It just doesn't happen. They're usually competitive in different matches. So maybe you're placing second for the year or third for the year at different competitions, and then you peak at OUAs, and that guy that beat you all year, you finally beat him. So there's a lot like that.
And the one when you brought up, like say, cutting weight. So when it comes to like the OUA this weekend, the championships this weekend, U Sport championships are in Guelph, May 2nd. How do, like you say, Kyle, or any of your wrestlers, when it comes to weight, like their division, is there do they step on a scale before the event? Is that how exactly you know what weight they're at?
Yeah, so we check weights almost daily. Athletes usually check their own weight. At this level, it's they're much more mature about it. They're not 13-year-olds. So most of our athletes are 19 or older. Kyle being 25. We have a couple 20-year-olds. Mel's 22, 21. So they're a lot more mature about their weight cut. They understand. The main thing for them is proper diet. There is weight cutting. So what all weight cutting means is you're actually you're dehydrating your body slightly. So you're losing water mass. You sweat a lot. That's all it comes down to. And we usually, for us at Algoma, we don't want to cut a lot of weight. So my big thing for a weight cut is, I don't call it a cut. It's just managing your weight properly. You drop a little bit till the day of, and then you sweat some out. So we don't go to drastic measures. We don't want anyone to be unhealthy. We don't want anyone to, wrestle poorly. Usually weigh-ins, so for OUAs, for example, weigh-ins at 5 o'clock on the Friday, and we start wrestling Saturday at 10 a.m. So they do have a recovery period, so they sweat a little bit just like they would at a practice. But as opposed to drinking water and rehydrating, they're just holding off after the practice and checking their weight.
And they say 10 a.m. at Algoma, George Leach, they say the OUA Championships. 3 o'clock is gold medals start, right?
Yeah, hopefully quite a few Algoma wrestlers involved in that one.
And well, actually, now that, like I say, we're talking, is that the 3 o'clock gold medal matches will be on Rogers TV and Sault Ste. Marie also. So it's a huge jump for us to have, like I say, basketball was on this Sunday on Rogers and more of our stuff. So it's just expands the exposure for the sports at Algoma too, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to see all the sports succeed, and I think all the coaches here, we get along fairly well, so we all want to see each program doing well, and basketball doing well, soccer doing well, curling doing well. It helps athletics in general. So I think everyone's rooting for everyone else. Yeah.
And final comments. I'm not asking any secrets, but what are you saying Saturday morning to your athletes before they hit the mat?
What can I say online with what I'm allowed to say? It's basic things in wrestling. We always talk about how not just wrestling in sport. You deserve to be here. You've worked harder than the other people. Mental mindset. We want to make sure that proper visualization techniques when we go out there, and with positive self-talk. As corny as it sounds, and I think we talk about this with our athletes. They're old enough to realize that the things that when they're kids, they almost think it's a joke, that positive self-talk, that visualization and everything else. Those are actual mental techniques for, you see across the board with high-level elite athletes, making sure that we're emphasizing that, being prepared for your matches, things like that, proper hydration, making sure they're snacking when they can, if they have injuries, making sure that they're seeing Courtney or when the doctors that are available. So it's, just a checklist.
And even right at this level, the 3-letter word fun should still be in there, right?
Yeah, that's why they're here. I mean, if you don't enjoy the sport, you're probably not going to be here any longer. So one thing I do think is that our team, we have a good balance. We probably could push them a little harder at times, but I mean, today we had a little bit of an easier practice because, the coaching staff, we just saw that, we couldn't push through. We had a couple bumps and bruises, and it wasn't worth it long run with OUAs this weekend to up the intensity anymore. So we kept it where it was. We told them, let them have some fun with practice and enjoy it, as opposed to pushing through and, possibly causing some injuries right before OUA. So we want to make sure that they're enjoying their time on the mats. And like I said, our ultimate goal is, as much as we want national champions, we want student athletes. So, I mean, it's not just winning a national championship that makes the team look good. I mean, we have athletes that, are using the degree and getting a career and making us look good there. So, I mean, ultimately, we want people to be successful in life and to continue with sport.
And Saturday, any pressure on you as a coach?
I don't think so.
What you've done up to that point, it's up to them then, right?
Yeah. And the nice thing about Algoma, not in a bad way, but it's I don't want to say there's no high expectations, because there obviously is, but it's not an NCAA Division I program where my job's on the line if my wrestlers don't perform. They're realistic here. They realize there's ups and downs. They realize we're a tiny university in Northern Ontario competing against U of T that has as many students as we have people in Sault Ste. Marie. So we're very realistic here with a lot of our expectations. Me personally, I have my hidden expectations where, I have a lot of people I think that might be that dark horse that are pulling off the odd win here and there, whether they weren't quite as close as they could have been throughout the year. So I would love to see ultimately a top 5 placing for our men's team, and a top 6 for our women's team is ideal for me.
And it says something going back is, out of top 64 athletes across the nation as of last week, out of 64 of them, you have 8.
Yeah.
So it says something about the Algoma program. You guys are doing something right at Algoma.
Yeah, I think what the athletes bring in the athletes at this point, because they, when we bring in a recruit, it's not like they're just talking to me. They come to practice, they'll meet the team, they talk to them. If the team has nothing good to say and they talk about how they hate it here, I mean, we're not going to get a recruit. So the fact that the team has positive things to say about the program, about the university, about the city, it all, it's a snowball effect. When we start getting in more and more athletes at higher level, it'll just continue going. So. And
I go back. I've coached at the Sioux College level. I've coached lacrosse and everything else. I've always said the best recruiters are the athletes themselves, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a coach, if you make them happy, they're gonna talk to other athletes too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Well, thank you, Trevor, and good luck on Saturday. And I know I'll be there all day, so I'll see you there and see if you're pulling out your hair and enjoying the day.
Well, hopefully I'm enjoying it. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, thank you.